Winter, 1890, Hawes, Yorkshire Dales. The wind howled across the exposed platform at Hawes railway station. Snow fell in thick, relentless sheets, drifting against the stone benches, and burying the tracks in white silence. The last train to Leeds had departed an hour earlier, its warm carriages long gone. All that remained was the bitter cold, and one solitary figure. Clara Hargreaves sat huddled on the end bench, her thin woolen cloak pulled tight, her nurse's bag, black leather, worn from years of use, rested beside her like a loyal companion. She had stopped shivering some time ago. Now her body felt leaden, as if the frost had seeped into her very bones. Her lips were blue, her eyelashes crusted with ice. She had come to the Dales with hope. A small cottage hospital in Leyburn needed a trained nurse. Steady work. A room above the ward. Clara had sold her mother's last silver brooch for the ticket. But somewhere on the crowded carriage from Leeds, her purse had been pinched. No money. No ticket onward or home. No one waiting. She had asked the station master for help. He'd shaken his head. Trains don't run on charity, miss. A couple of farm lads waiting for the milk train had smirked, made coarse remarks, then wandered off laughing when she turned away. Now the platform was empty. Only her, and the lantern above the ticket window, its flame flickering weakly in the gale. Clara closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, lost to pneumonia 2 winters before. The promise she'd made at the graveside, to help others, the way no one had helped them. The irony was bitter. Hooves crunched on the frozen track beyond the platform. At first she thought it was the wind. Then the sound grew clearer. A single horse, approaching steadily through the blizzard. A tall figure dismounted near the steps, broad shoulders under a heavy tweed greatcoat dusted with snow. A flat cap pulled low. He tied the reins to the iron rail, and climbed the steps. He stopped when he saw her. "Miss." His voice was low, roughened by years of shouting over wind and sheep. "You all right?" Clara tried to answer. Her jaw ached with cold. The words came out cracked. "I'm waiting for the morning train." He glanced at the buried tracks, then back at her. "No trains till midday tomorrow, lass. This storm's set to close the line for days." She nodded once. Too weary to argue, he studied her in silence. Then, without a word, he shrugged off his greatcoat and draped it over her shoulders. The weight brought instant warmth, thick wool, still holding his body heat. It smelled of peat smoke, wet tweed, and sheepdog. "You'll freeze solid out here," he said simply. "My farm's 8 miles up the dale. Fire's lit. Tea's on. Come with me." Clara looked up properly then. He was perhaps mid-30s. Strong jaw shadowed with stubble. Eyes the color of summer grass on the fells. A faint scar along one cheek. He didn't look the sort to beg favors, or expect thanks. "I don't know you," she whispered. "Name's Thomas Whitaker. Run Highmere Farm up toward Buttertub's Pass. Not much for company. But I'm not leaving a woman to perish on a station platform." She hesitated. Pride battled survival. Survival won. He offered his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, calloused fingers warm against her icy skin. He helped her stand. Her legs buckled. Without hesitation, he scooped her up, bag and all, and carried her down to his horse. The ride blurred into wind and snow. Clara pressed her face against his shoulder, letting the horse's rhythm, and the steady beat of his heart, keep her awake. She didn't know if this was rescue, or something worse. Right then, she didn't care. Highmere Farm appeared through the whiteoat, like a miracle. A long, low stone farmhouse. Lamplight spilling from mullioned windows. 2 chimneys smoked thickly. A barn loomed behind, and stone walls where sheep huddled. Thomas carried her inside. Heat struck like a wall. A fire blazed in the huge inglenook hearth. The smell of mutton stew and fresh bread. twisted her empty stomach. He set her gently in a Windsor chair by the flames, and knelt to tug off her sodden boots. Her feet were pale and waxen. He muttered under his breath, "Mrs. Dobbs." He called toward the kitchen. Hot water and blankets, sharpish. A sturdy woman in her 50s appeared, wiping floury hands on her apron. She took one look at Clara, and tutted, "Mercy me. Get them stockings off, Mr. Whittaker. I'll fetch the foot bath." Thomas paused only a moment, before carefully peeling the frozen wool away. Clara winced as blood returned in sharp needles. "Easy now," he murmured. "Breathe." Mrs. Dobbs brought a tin basin of steaming water. With a handful of mustard, Thomas eased Clara's feet in, steadying her ankles when she gasped. They worked quietly, Mrs. Dobbs fetching thick socks and a patchwork quilt, Thomas rubbing life back into her toes. When color returned, he wrapped her feet warmly and tucked the quilt round her. Mrs. Dobbs pressed a mug of strong tea into her hands, laced with a splash of whiskey. Clara sipped slowly, feeling warmth creep back. Thomas sat opposite on a settle, elbows on knees. "You got a name, miss?" "Clara Hargreaves. Nurse." He nodded at the bag. "I trained in Leeds Infirmary. I was bound for Leyburn Hospital." He rubbed his jaw. "Leyburn's a fair trek even in summer. Lines likely blocked till spring." Clara stared into the fire. "I've nowhere else." Thomas was quiet a long while. Then, "We've room. There's the old shepherd's bothy out back. Empty since old Jem moved to town. Stove, bed, table. Yours as long as you need. I can't pay." "Don't want paying. But if you're a nurse." He glanced down the passage. "My sister's lad, young Jamie. Took a fever 4 days back. Doctor from Hawes won't venture out in this. Mrs. Dobbs has sat with him. But she's no training." Clara straightened. "Take me to him." Thomas eyed her. "You sure? You were near frozen." "I'm sure." He led her to a small bedroom. A boy of 8 lay under heavy blankets, face flushed, breathing quick and shallow. Mrs. Dobbs sponged his brow. Clara knelt, opened her bag, and began pulse, chest, temperature. Pneumonia, she feared. Or near enough. She gave quiet orders. Kettle steam. Willow bark infusion. Mustard poultices. For 4 days the blizzard raged outside, while Clara battled inside. She barely slept. Thomas was always near, fetching coal, boiling water, holding Jamie when fever made him thrash. He spoke little, but his presence was rock steady. On the 5th morning, Jamie's fever broke. The boy opened his eyes, looked at Clara, and croaked, "Are you an angel, miss?" She smiled gently, brushing damp hair back. "Just a nurse, love." Thomas stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching. Something softened in his face. That evening, after Jamie slept peacefully, Thomas found Clara on the back step, wrapped in his greatcoat again. The storm had eased. Stars shone cold and bright over the fells. "You saved him," he said quietly. "I did my job. You didn't have to. Could have taken the bed and rested. Most would. I'm not most." "No," he agreed softly. "You're not." Comfortable silence fell. "I've no family left," Thomas said eventually. "Lost my wife to childbed fever 7 years back. Jamie's all I've got. This farm, it's too big for one man and a boy. Been thinking of help. But I'm no good with strangers." Clara looked at him. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if you'd stay. Not as hired help. As part of this place. You could set up a wee surgery here. Folk round these dales need doctoring badly. I'd build whatever you want. Exam room. Cupboard for medicines. In return, you get a home. And Jamie gets someone who knows how to keep him breathing. When I'm out on the tops with the flock." Clara's heart thudded. "That's generous. It's selfish," he admitted. "I don't want you back on that train." She searched his face. The scar. The green eyes. The quiet strength. "I've been alone so long," she said softly. "I don't know how else to be." Thomas reached out. Brushed snow from her cheek. His touch lingered. "Then let me show you different." She drew a breath. "I'll stay. For Jamie. For the folk who need help. And for you?" he asked. She smiled, the first real one in years. "Maybe for me too." Spring came slowly to the dales. But it came. Snow melted into rushing becks. Grass greened the limestone. Thomas built the surgery. A neat stone extension to the farmhouse. Whitewashed walls. Shelves for bottles. A wide window catching morning light. Word spread. Shepherds with broken limbs. Wives with fevered bairns. Travelers caught in snowdrifts. Found their way to Hymir. Clara worked tirelessly. Hands steady. Voice calm. She earned respect. Then fondness. Thomas watched from afar at first. Then nearer. He brought her tea at dawn. Helped carry supplies. Sat with her on the bench at dusk. While Jamie played nearby. One June evening. Sky pink and gold over the moors. Thomas found her in the surgery sorting lint. "Clara." She looked up. He removed his cap. Turned it in his hands. "I'm no good with fancy words. Never have been. But this place, it's different since you came." Jamie laughs more. "The men smile when they see you. And me." He swallowed. "I don't want to wake one morning and find you gone." She set the lint down. Walked to him. "I'm not going anywhere, Thomas." He looked at her, really looked. "Marry me, Clara. Not because I brought you in from the cold. Because you brought warmth back to me." Tears stung her eyes. She reached up. Touched the scar on his cheek. "Yes." He drew her close. Kissed her slowly. Surely. Like a man who had waited years. Years passed. Hymir thrived. Clara's surgery became known across the dales. She delivered babies. Set fractures. Eased fevers. Taught village girls to read and tend the sick. Jamie grew tall. Calling her ma'am without thinking. Thomas and Clara built a life. Not perfect. But honest. They weathered storms and sheep diseases. Celebrated lambings and harvests. Held each other through grief. Every winter. When the first snow fell. They rode to the old Hawes station platform. Now half buried in drifts. They stood hand in hand. Remembering. It wasn't chance. Clara would say softly, "No." Thomas would reply, pulling her close. It was everything. Their kindness, his to her. Hers to the world. Rippled outward. Warming lives long after. Hymir became more than a farm. It became a haven. A place where the lost found shelter. The cold were warmed. And love proved stronger than any Yorkshire gale. And somewhere, in the quiet of a dale's winter night, the wind still whispers. She was freezing alone at the railway station. A wealthy Yorkshire landowner's kindness changed everything.